All right. This is the fourth time I've tried this. And so instead of recording the Zooms, the problem is there that they get a little chit-chatty, and which is fine. I mean, it's just normal, except that if you're watching it to try and make up some stuff, you don't want to have to sit there and list all this stuff. Plus FERPA and faces, and so I'm not going to record those, I think. I'm just going to go ahead and record a synopsis of every time we have a new meeting. You know, I'll record kind of the main ideas that came out of first, second, third hour. Okay, so mostly it'll be screen sharing, talking about announcements. So this is your first announcement, is that we won't be recording Zoom, or if it's Google Meet. Instead, I'll try and put a new one of these out, and I'll link it through. It'll be on. I'll put it up to YouTube, and then I'll link it that way. Okay. So I'm going to start sharing the screen here, and go that route. All right. So here we go. So today we talked about, and I guess I'm up there in the corner, and I'm still recording. Right. God, this is driving me crazy, but I am still recording. All right, so first day, start with the basics, dumb joke. And then we played a little Where in Norman. We're not going to play it in this synopsis here, but we played this game called Where in Norman, occasionally just for fun, a few minutes. And we had this today. We were trying to guess restaurants, outside restaurants in Norman. So I'll just fast forward through all these things. What I did was we started them all zoomed in, and then then I was like, what the heck? Why can't I? Oh, okay, my bad. So we started them all zoomed in, and then we zoomed out, and then the kids had to, in the chat, say what the restaurant was. And then you gain these little win points, and eventually the winner gets some kind of prize at the end of the 9 weeks. This is a game we play. Okay, so it's third restaurant. They ended up being Fuzzies, so everybody got that one. And fourth restaurant, that ended up being Blue, which nobody got. See, tack on it. I can't do this because third hour hadn't seen this yet. I'll have to post this after third hour. Okay, on Wednesday. On Tuesday. All right. So then we did this one, and this was Winston's and Matt Jackson. Ties there as well. Okay, so that was what we did there. And then we talked about Canvas for a while. And that's my brother giving a speech at his daughter's wedding on Saturday night. But the point is that nobody's wearing masks. So I'm figuring that there was 150 people there, and nobody, well, maybe 10 of us were wearing masks. So I think we're going to be doing virtual longer than we think. So this is my homepage, a zoomed out view of it. Hopefully you've been to my homepage and seen that. And it'll change, but that's it for now. So we start off, when we talked about this, talked about some of the quotes, and the idea that you have to fail really to succeed. So in my class, there's a lot of daily failure, but by the time the test comes around, you got to figure it out. So that's sort of people. I have students that are perfectionists, and they struggle with that because they never want to make a mistake. Well, read all these quotes. I mean, all the greats learn from their mistakes. That's how you learn. If you're afraid to make a mistake, you're not going to learn much. You'll memorize a bunch of junk, but you're not going to learn a whole lot. So I want you to know that going in. And then we watch this little film. It's a little GIF. You can look at it later. And there's a 1 minute intro video. We're all supposed to have intro videos. So there's my 1 minute intro video. You can watch it at your leisure. And this is probably the main thing you want to see on the homepage is it tells you, I got to change this, I guess. It tells you what's happening for the week. This is first hours, but second hour, third hour have something similar. Okay. And then there's links at the bottom. On the exit quiz today, there's a couple of questions on from the Who Is This ASCII Fellow. See if you look that over. The question board is a good place to put your questions, like just basic, what's going on, how do we do this, what's the link. Not really discussion questions. I guess there's a difference. One's questions are just like procedures, stuff like that. And then discussions are, we'll discuss topics. Physics modules, they're at the bottom right of your home screen. That's where you'll go most of the time, because that takes you to what's happening that week. Here's my syllabus. It's not done yet. It's a kind of work in progress. That's my thoughts as of the 18th of August. Here's some assignments. Now, I've already changed the due dates on these, so that's still the same assignments, just the due dates are switched around. I've moved them back because we're just not getting where I thought we'd get it all. So here's the modules that you'll see, and in there, I guess every module, every student has this at the beginning. That's sort of a required, just to help you with Canvas. And then these are probably ought to look these over. They're pretty short, but just think the overview. If you're interested in what we're going to do in class, that gives you a pretty good overview. Class resources, that's going to keep adding. I'll keep adding to that. There's a few on there already. And then if you want to ask about class procedures, there's another spot to ask them. And then the contact ASCII, that's probably good to put that in your phone, ways to get a hold of them. Here's our first week, which is this week. And like I say, this has already changed some. So that'll be adjusted every day. But that was my best guess as of last week. Okay, so if you want to do a Canvas discussion, and you're going to get like participation points. So if you wanted to do that, it's not like, I can't say it's a requirement, but it's just something to help me to get to know you a little bit before we meet again. And then there's this 3-question exit quiz. And so just sometime before, for like first and third hour, sometime before Thursday, and for second hour, sometime before Friday, before our next, in other words, before our next meeting. Now, let's go ahead and start. So we only went about 40 minutes, which is fine. So we have an hour, but there are times where it gets pretty difficult. And of course, you can always come and go on a Zoom, but for a live Zoom. But anyway, so today we only did about 40 minutes. So we talked about the beginnings of physics, and physics is the study of kind of nature and how it works, the universe, the physical universe. Physics came out of philosophy. Philosophy is the study of thought. Well, so it's more of a specific, like Isaac Newton in the late 1600s, he was considered a philosopher as well as a physicist, same with Galileo. So there's a lot of overlap. But we start with 1495 and Da Vinci. This came off my Facebook group last year. We would put captions on and kind of have a slideshow every night on the Facebook group. But I'm kind of backing off Facebook because, for one thing, I'm not a big fan of Zuckerberg, but I like the Facebook groups. They're really well done, and we used it exclusively last year to communicate all the time. But Facebook's always having issues. Some parents don't want the kids on there, so the kids don't really go to Facebook. But so I'm probably not going to do that kind of slideshow like I did. This may be the substitute for that. Anyway, here is so here's Leonardo with self-drawing, and the reason why I pick him, 1495, why I pick him as the beginning of kind of this physics thought. I wouldn't call him a physicist, obviously. He was not a scientist. He was a bit of an engineer. He's a great artist, but his main goal in life was to fly. He would love to fly. He drew and designed all kinds of wings. In fact, in my room at school, on the ceiling, I have a student that painted his son Da Vinci's wings. So he was going to jump off the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? It's probably apocryphal, but that's the legend. So he didn't, but he was thinking, well, if I did that, how would I fall to the earth? Now, if you're thinking about Aristotle, it's pretty much, they don't even talk about the idea of acceleration. But Da Vinci said, I would fall 1 cubit in the first second, let's say, 2 cubits in instant time, 2 cubits in the second, 3 cubits in the third. So he was starting to understand or think about the idea of acceleration and actually quantifying it. Now, he was wrong. Luckily, he didn't jump because he would have been off. We'll talk about Galileo. It took Galileo another 100 and some odd, 120 years to figure it out, but later. But he was the first, but Da Vinci was the first one to actually start thinking about that. So that's why I call him the first person to try and quantify nature. And I'm not saying Archimedes didn't, but that was more geometry and mathematics. This is more kinematics, more study of movement. Okay. So we're going to start with 1495 with Da Vinci. And then we're going to skip ahead to 1543. Now we're talking Copernicus. If you've ever played the game, what's it called? It's an older video game, Assassin's Creed. Copernicus is actually in there. He helps you out. So I always thought that was funny, but this is so Copernicus was a religious man, as most these people were. Everybody that was learned, they would read the Bible. And so Copernicus, though, also studied the stars, studied the planets, and realized that the going idea that the Earth was a center, or a geocentric view of the universe, the Earth was the center and everything revolved around us as God intended, right? He began to realize that it wasn't matching up. You had to do a lot of retrograde motion. It got to be, Mars, sometimes they go backwards. It's just crazy. So they started doing epicycles. It was just a mess. Ptolemy was the one that did a lot of this work earlier. It was genius work, but it was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And Copernicus said, this is much simpler. And he didn't have a lot of data yet. It wasn't until Tycho came along that there was much data. But he, from his observations and from his readings, he showed, astronomy was huge in the Middle East. So he had data, he had some access to things before this, but so he's reading and thinking through this and thinks, the easiest way to explain the planets, how they move, is to make the sun the center of the universe. And they didn't understand galaxies or nothing like that, but he said, let's put the sun at the center and let the earth revolve around the sun. Well, that would get him killed, right? He's going to be burned at the stake for that. So he didn't want to say anything about that. He ended up finally, he made a pamphlet about it, and he put it, he had him publish it when he was on his deathbed. And you can't blame the guy, because if you've ever watched, my wife and I are watching Handmaid's Tale, and when a theocracy takes over, a lot of times science is the first victim. And unfortunately, truth is the first victim, physical truth. So the church would not have cared for Copernicus saying that the sun was the center and not the earth. Okay, so that was the beginning of this problem that the church had with science back in 1543. Okay, let's keep going. And we'll jump ahead to, this is sort of, like I say, physics is a story. And we're jumping ahead to one of the most colorful characters, and that's Tycho Brahe. My wife and I went to Amsterdam a few years ago, and I was saying Tycho Brahe, and somebody said, no, Tycho Brahe. That's how they say it. He was Danish. Probably he is considered the greatest naked eye astronomer in history. He cataloged 777 stars with just his eyes, no telescope. The telescope had not been invented yet. So now we're talking 80s, somewhere in there, 1570s. He had his own island. The whole story with Tycho. If you look at that picture closely, you see that his nose looks strange because his nose had been cut off, or part of his nose had been cut off by a duel. He got into a duel with, I think, a second cousin or something where you think, well, it's over a woman, but it wasn't. It was over. I always thought it was, but then read about it a few years ago. It was over a algebra formula. So that's crazy. Anyway, so he had this island. He populated it with, it was like a circus. He had his own moose, his pet, or elk. That was his best buddy, his drinking buddy. And one night he wasn't there, and somebody got the moose drunk, and the moose fell down the stairs and died. And Tycho was never quite the same after that. He ended up, I think his stomach exploded or something, but colorful character. But known as one of the greatest naked eye astronomers, had his own observatory. It's still there, by the way. You can go look at it. And his main contribution, though, is probably who worked for him, which was this guy, Johannes Kepler. And Kepler was his #1 guy. And then after, when Tycho died, or when he was dying, he called Kepler to his side and he pulled him down. This is once again, legend. Pulled him down and whispered in his ear, said, "Don't let all this work go in vain. I mean, use my data." And so that's what Kepler said anyway. So Tycho's family would not give Kepler the data, and Tycho had like 16 years of data. So Kepler actually snuck into the basement and stole it, quote, stole it. And they fought for this. They fought about this for a long time afterwards, litigation. But Kepler then used all this 16 years of data that Tycho had. Tycho was used, the Tychonic system it was like a politics. I mean, it was a compromise. It said that, yes, everything goes around the sun, but the sun goes around the earth. See, he wanted to keep his people who was employing him. He owed a lot of people a lot of favors, and he wanted to keep the people in power happy. So he came up with that idea. But Kepler then took that data and spent forever trying. There's 30 years war going on. They claimed his mother was a witch. He just had Kepler's interesting life. If you want to look into somebody, and I have Kepler. I have some videos on him that I put on the canvas, which we'll get to later. Anyway, so Kepler came up with Kepler's 3 laws. Now we're still talking late 1500s. So in fact, when you take AP Physics, you'll spend a whole chapter just studying Kepler's laws. So it's pretty important astronomy-wise. And so we'll come back to Kepler later. That's as far as I want to go on the history today. And we'll come back in a few weeks, maybe and do a little more. Okay, because like I say, you can't just talk about physics without talking about the history, where it came from. And plus it's a really interesting story. We try and take it all the way to even modern day. We would have got there last year, except that the COVID came. Okay, we're on good pace. Now, the question we have, though, today, the final question is, can you really sit still? And so we sort of ended the last few minutes of class today. We thought we talked about, can you really sit still? And why, and when I say, yeah, here, I'm not sitting still, but my center of mass is about right in here on me. And I can move my arms around, my center of mass still isn't moving. So the question is, if I sat real still, would that still be motionless? So I guess what I'm asking is, what is motionless? Are you motionless if you're sitting still? So that's what I want to leave you with. I want you to think about that, and eventually I'll figure out this discussion thing. That might be, I might throw it out there, say Wednesday as a discussion topic, and you can write in there. We got a little bit further in this in third hour than we did first hour, but I'll leave it at that. The idea, though, is, remember, you're sitting still in a room, but is that room sitting still? And it all depends on your reference point. So this will lead us to our discussion on Thursday, Friday of reference points and all that, okay? And circular motion and some other kind of cool things. So I'm going to end the meeting now. Oh, let me stop sharing. And then I'll end the meeting now. And so you know the ways to contact me. I've already had people text me. I mean, I don't really want to be texted, but okay, it's for now until we get it all figured out. Probably the main way we'll contact each other is through Canvas. I don't like emails though. Emails, I never get around to returning emails. So I'm okay with texting for now, or just through Canvas. Okay. Or I'll tell you what, Facebook is the best probably way for you to get it. Our Facebook group, it's private. It's a private group. It's just us. It's you. There's a couple of the teachers on there and me. Sometimes parents are asking to get on there. Okay, fine. But there's no politics. There's no bullying. There's no profanity. I mean, there's nothing on there it's all, we talk about science. We talk about topics going on. We talk about physics. We talk about the class. People post videos on there, interesting articles. That's all it is. And then I keep these Facebook groups for years and years. I was talking the other night to the group back from 2014. So we still communicate this way years and years from now. So it's kind of cool. That's the cool part about it. So if you're not too, you can always join and then get out if you want later. But join the Facebook group. The name of it is ASCII Physics Fall 2020, I believe. So ASCII Physics Fall 2020. There's tons of these ASCII Physics. So make sure you try and ask to join the right one. Don't join Spring 2020. That's last year's class. I'm not going to let you in there. We ended up with a bunch of members. We had like 400 people in that, but I was inviting all these alumni to come in, and I'm going to stop that. We had a lot of people in that one, but I'm going to be more careful about who I invite in. It's mostly for us. Okay, so I'll see you guys Wednesday for 9:30 in the morning. Go back to the same Zoom. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.